All right, well, we'll start here and hopefully have some positive news to look at here in the future. I want to start, though, looking behind at our last week, another warmer than normal week. Again, this warmer than normal pattern goes all the way back to really the third week of May. But for the overall, even with a cool weekend, we actually had some temperatures in the 30s here this past weekend, but that was balanced out by much warmer than normal temperatures late last work week and then again over the last couple of days. So our means for the week were generally 3 to 6 degrees Fahrenheit above normal, but again, generally we're certainly have seen a major pickup in terms of degree days, and I'll show you those totals here in just a second. Precip wise, it depended on where you were, but most of the state had significant rainfall here over the last week. Most cases more than an inch. We had more than 2 inches in an area from southwestern lower through the west central up through northern lower. You can see that in the yellows here on the right. Also had, I think notably, some significant precip up in the upper peninsula, especially central upper Michigan. And that's an area that had been abnormally dry for the last several weeks. One exception to this, once again, down in the southeast corner of the lower peninsula. That's an area that has been missed repeatedly here over the last several weeks. And it is in contrast to much of the state where we have above normal water in the system right now, that southeastern part, the topsoils are still relatively dry compared to the rest of the state. I mentioned the degree days. We have had a major jump. Most areas have been picking up 100 base 50 units here per week over the last couple of weeks. But even with that, we still lag as of the midnight here on the 3rd. We still lag about 30 units behind, 30, 40 units. But we're catching up, and the deficits, which earlier were in some cases in terms of calendar days, more than 2 weeks behind normal. Now we're up in that probably a few days or a couple days behind. So the warmer weather of the last couple weeks has made a major difference in terms of our seasonal heat accumulation. And given the forecast, will probably be caught up or closer to normal here by next week. So where are we headed? On our weather map this morning here, the frontal boundary that went through the state on Tuesday has stalled out just to our south over portions of Illinois, Indiana, Ohio. There is a chance, there's a little bit of scattered shower activity with that, and there's a chance that we could see an isolated shower at some point today in the southern tier or 2 of counties, but that would be by far the exception. Really, our tension is off to the west here in this next frontal system, actually a low pressure system moving across southern Canada. But this cold front, that's the next weather feature really of note, and that will move through the state mostly during the day tomorrow with our next chance for anything significant in the way of precipitation. I'll loop here to 8 a.m. tomorrow morning. You can see that it gets closer, and as that happens, we will see at least the chance. It doesn't look like a widespread event, but the chance for showers and maybe a couple of embedded rumbles of thunder beginning in the western and central portion of the upper peninsula here late today. Overnight, then spreading into the western part of the lower peninsula, northern lower Michigan, and then during the day tomorrow. So we're looking at maybe a 12-hour or so window where we would have a chance for showers and thunderstorms. The greatest chances for rain with this particular system will be across the northern part of the state, especially the UP and the northern lower. But even there, we're talking about maybe 50-50 odds. As you go south from there, 30 to 40%. And where rain does occur, not expecting anything heavy, probably on the order of a quarter of an inch or less. Then finally, by Saturday morning here, you can see the frontal system has moved off to the east of Michigan and replaced the high pressure. So the center of this is still off the map up in, looks like northern Manitoba, but it's on its way down for the weekend. And it's going to set the stage for another somewhat similar weekend to last weekend. Fair, cool, and dry. Almost without exception, Saturday and Sunday look really, really nice. Temperatures falling back from summer-like levels here over the next day or two. We will be in the 80s for high temperatures over most of the state today, only down into the upper 50s and 60s here for lows tonight. A couple degrees cooler tomorrow, but still above normal. And then we see the temperatures really drop off on Saturday. So over the weekend, 60s north, low 70s south, and then nighttime temperatures below Kim's temperature thresholds here for some of those warm season grasses, they'll be in the 40s. In some cases, the northern part of the state probably will see some lower 40s both Saturday and Sunday morning. After that, things become much more interesting, and you can barely see it off the bottom of the map here, but it's looking like a tropical disturbance, which now is actually a tropical depression right now. It was Tropical Storm Cristobal. It's currently over extreme southeastern Mexico and has stalled out, but there's a lot of evidence in the forecast guidance that suggests that that system over the next 24 hours will begin to move northward and then across the open Gulf of Mexico northward and maybe make landfall somewhere on the northern Gulf Coast here, possibly Louisiana, by maybe Monday. And the reason I bring that up, we typically don't talk about these things, but there's a lot of good agreement in the forecast guidance that at least some of the moisture associated with Cristobal will make it up into possibly into the Midwest and maybe to the Great Lakes region by the middle of next week. And actually there it's forecast to combine with an upper level trough moving out of the westerly. So it'll be in the process of becoming less tropical and more extratropical. But all of that points to an increase in moisture and humidity by the early part of next week. And right now, again, the timing, it's way out there, but right now it looks like Wednesday could be a wet and windy day across much of the Great Lakes region, including Michigan. It's out on the fringe of what we typically like to do with confidence, but it's been in the forecast here for a few days, so it's definitely worth mentioning. So after this dry weekend and probably a dry beginning to next week, the next major chance for significant, and it could be significant rainfall, would be probably the middle of next work week. Here's the precipitation totals from the models looking at through next Thursday morning. And you can clearly see here the signature or the fingerprint of Cristobal with all of this red and orange down here in the Gulf. That's all tropical moisture associated with that system. And the expectations of it moving up there here again down there by late in the weekend, and then finally up into the upper Midwest and the Great Lakes region by next week. Not so much moisture here over the next 24 hours. I mentioned maybe a quarter of an inch or so. So the vast majority of what you see here, and in many cases it's at least 3/4 of an inch or greater. Most of that is expected to fall next Wednesday. So something to keep an eye on. It probably will be a relatively short visit from that if it does happen, but right now it does look like Wednesday would be the most likely day that would occur. Into the medium range forecast term, a little bit more of a curveball here from the climate system. And if we look at the jet stream, we see the formation of another trough. And this is actually here on the left-hand side here, the forecast jet stream. This is for the middle to latter part of next week. This is actually the trough that's expected to take the remnants of Cristobal and move those off to the north and east relatively quickly. But at the same time, it's also going to bring down another patch of Canadian origin air. And so mean temperatures are forecast to cool back to below normal levels here by the latter part of next week, and maybe lasting a little bit longer than that, maybe into next weekend. So after some very summer-like weather here, at least over the short term, it looks like the medium range is suggesting once again a return to cooler than normal conditions. It also has, this is a 6 to 10 day outlook. The 8 to 14 day time frame is similar, but both of those call for above normal precipitation. Much of this for this period is also, again, associated with the remnants of Cristobal, and you can see that here pretty clearly for the lower and middle Mississippi Valley. So again, after summer-like weather, it does look like some cooling down a week out. So summarizing here, beautiful day across most of the state today, a little bit warm, 80s in most areas, but we will see showers and thunderstorms, or at least the risk, starting here later today and continuing tomorrow across the state. Greatest risk in the north. And then after that frontal boundary moves through tomorrow, we will see a fair, dry, and very, very pleasant weekend here with temperatures back into the 60s and 70s during the daytime over the weekend and continuing into Monday. There probably will be a noticeable warm-up beginning on Monday and then continuing Tuesday as, again, we start to look at it towards south, towards Cristobal. And that's the next major weather feature, the next big potential risk of rain by the middle of next week. And then, as you just saw, possibly or likely moving towards cooler than normal conditions here by the latter part of next week. And I finally would note that with the medium range forecast guidance, not all of the models are on the same page in terms of patterns. And so the confidence in that is a little bit less than it typically is, or it is this time of the year. So just something to keep in mind. Again, not something to bet the farm on, but that's at least the general direction things are headed. And with that, I'll wrap up and move ahead with a couple of reminders. And first, our speaker next week, Dr. Kurt Steinke, will be back and talking about managing nitrogen losses associated with flooding. So be here for that one again next Thursday, a special edition. Also, the Michigan Wheat Program Virtual Field Day is going to be held Wednesday, the 10th of June. That's next Wednesday from 8 to 11 in the morning. And you can see the registration information given down below there. So it's another something to catch. And maybe if Cristobal does pay us a visit, it'll be a good day to be indoors anyway. And with that, I will wrap up here and turn it back to Phil or see if there's any questions. Thank you.